Hey, this is Jay Snodgrass, and this is Animal Magic. Today's episode is about the Hydra. Children can sense it when you're really focused on something. Like when a writer really gets into the zone, the ecstatic trance, and the Greek muses and the Holy Ghost are dancing above my head, and light bulbs of inspiration flash like fireflies. It emits some frequency that only children and dogs can hear. And for some reason, it tells them that they're hungry or suddenly have some question that can't wait. The other day I was writing. No, it wasn't that. I was watching words appear on my screen while my fingers flickered and clicked the keys, and as letters crackled into life, I was reading phrases that had never been made before. It was like something co-composed with a swirling host of ancestral spirits. And Malcolm walked in, without knocking, with a pressing question. "Dad, do zombies remember anything from their former life?" "I don't think so." "Can someone who's been zombified recognize a friend?" "I don't know, but zombies aren't real, so they can be custom-made to fit into a story. Whoever's telling the story gets to decide those things." "Some of my friends say zombies are fast, but someone else says they're slow. Which one's true?" "It depends on the movie or the video game or whatever. I think it would be much scarier if they moved like those claymation creatures in the old Clash of the Titans movie. Those things looked insane." He shrugged because he hadn't seen that movie. Then he asked, "Did the Joker know Bruce Wayne when they were kids?" It was clear that my writing time was over. I don't think the Greek muses or the Holy Ghost wanted to hear me tell my kid to buzz off. So I put my work aside and we talked about Batman movies and the history of zombies in cinema. I can't say whether zombies walk or run, but I can say for a fact that in such and such movie they're like this, and in such and such other movie they're like that. It's like a student this semester sent me an email asking, "Is the devil real or just a metaphor?" My first impulse was to say, it's just something the church made up for one of its fundraisers. But then I happened to notice that the email was time-stamped 2:32 in the morning. Also, I have a responsibility to neither confirm nor deny any mythical creature, and if I keep telling my kids the Easter Bunny is real, I guess I should be willing to play along with this devil thing too, because I find them equally believable. So I responded that I'd be glad to help this kid study the textual development of the Satan, track down some Bible quotes and essays. Then he could come to his own conclusion, the logical deduction, that just as man makes God in his own image, man also makes the devil in the image of whoever he needs an excuse to hit. Like if one person wants to do something really unchristian to another, then pretending that their neighbor looks like Lucifer makes it not only blameless, but saintly to attack them, and kind of a sin not to. One could almost say Christianity creates Satan in the shape of its next intended victim. Some mythical creatures are even more malleable than that. The Hydra, for example, whose every severed head sprouted two more, can be a conqueror's symbol for grassroots resistance, or it could represent the martyr's power to inspire new protesters. The Hydra originates in a minor legend of Heracles, and it's now become a stock character that can appear in any modern retelling of Greek myth. Storytellers can shape it and mold it as the production budget allows. They'll usually start by making it male, although in the source material it is defiantly female. My familiarity with the Hydra mostly comes from Robert Graves, who writes that the many heads represent a college of priestesses, and each time Heracles killed one, two more would take her place. Here it's worth remembering that in Heracles' day, shortly before the Trojan War, the Greeks were barely out of the trees and caves. The only semblance of civilization would have been the pagan convents where priestesses practiced mysterious rituals and hygiene. As the only people who ever washed their faces, they must have appeared to possess a supernatural glow. Then the barbarians came and sacked the nunneries, which doesn't sound very legendary, so they dressed up the stories, saying that they battled a multi-headed man-eating monster. And indeed, these priestesses probably did sacrifice men and eat them. The name Heracles and the word hero both originated with men who were supposed to be slain on the altar of the goddess Hera. It was a precautionary measure to prevent the rise of an adamantly unhygienic patriarchy, the ancestors of our modern anti-vaxxers. Anyway, that's basically what we get from Robert Graves, who can pretty convincingly present all of history in terms of a male fear of being eaten by women. That might sound infantile or Freudian, but try it on for size. Imagine any event or movement in all of human history, and then say, it happened because men are afraid that women will eat them. And for a moment, everything made sense. It's certainly as good an explanation as anything else I've ever heard. The mythical Hydra was female, a daughter either of the fallen priestess Medusa or some other sea monster. The goddess Hera raised her as a pet in the hope that this poisonous creature would someday kill her cheating husband's love child, Heracles. Scholar Carl Ruck of Boston University proposes that the Hydra was more plant than animal, some toxic vine whose stalks, once cut, sprouted others. This actually makes a great deal of sense, more than any zoological explanation, and here I mean makes sense within the magical realm of mythical symbol. It could almost make for a good musical, like The Little Shop of Hydra. The earliest versions of the Hydra story are vase paintings, which circulate for centuries before anyone writes it down. The most famous written narrative is by Apollodorus. The Hydra had a huge body with 9 heads, 8 mortal and the middle one immortal. By pelting it with fiery arrow shafts, Heracles forced it to come out of its den, then seized and held it fast. But the Hydra wound itself about one of his feet and clung to him. Nor could he effect anything by smashing its heads with his club, for as fast as one head was smashed, there grew up 2. A huge crab also came to the help of the Hydra by biting his foot, so he killed it. And in his turn he called for help from a friend, who by burning the roots of the heads with the brands prevented them from sprouting. Having thus got the better of the sprouting heads, he chopped off the immortal head and buried it, and put a heavy rock on it. The body of the Hydra he slit up and dipped his arrows in the gall. The first thing we may note is that the Hydra isn't trying to eat him. It wraps around his foot, maybe because he keeps clubbing it. The cutting, in some versions with a pruning hook, and the cauterizing sound more like weeding a flower patch than battling a serpent. Now I can't help but envision horticultural Heracles in a gardener's apron, carefully picking dandelions, anxious that any seed on the wind will sprout 2 more. And then he gets clipped by a crab, which seems to come out of nowhere. But his wicked stepmother Hera was so impressed by it that she cast this pest into the starry sky to become the crustacean constellation called Cancer. And Cancer, like the Hydra, is known to sprout 2 cells for every 1 cut, but I have nothing clever to say about that. In Greek myth, the 12 star signs are all Hera's portraits of beasts that wounded Heracles. The Hydra as plant theory makes additional sense when we recall that its blood was a toxic sap, and Heracles dipped his arrows in this poison to fight other monsters. Then, in one of Greek myth's fascinating twists, his same bow would be used a generation later by Philoctetes, who shot Paris of Troy, ending the Trojan War. Another fascinating theory about the historical Hydra is that it was an underground river whose flooding rose up to drown the crops, creating malarial swamps that blighted the cattle. According to this idea, hatched by the 3rd century Italian scholar Servius, each time a channel of the river was blocked, the waters would split to either side of the dam, creating 2 new rivers. So using fire to cauterize the necks represented burning the ground to dry it out so the floods would be absorbed before they could spread. This theory has the fascinating benefit of explaining the creature's name, Hydra, which basically means water. In 1735, the shriveled remains of the Hydra were up for auction in Hamburg, Germany. A young biologist named Carl Linnaeus, who happened to be touring the town, asked to see this beast before it was sold. A brief look revealed that the dried husk was actually a collage of parts: a stuffed dog, some snakes, and weasel heads, stitched together long ago, likely by monks attempting to produce irrefutable proof of the beasts in the Book of Revelation. Which, I guess, is one way to deal with people's disbelief. Just lie to them. Linnaeus told the town's mayor that a great embarrassment had been averted, a Hamburg humbug, but the mayor, who had once bought and was now trying to sell this thing, didn't see it that way. He gave Linnaeus a brief head start and then announced that he should be killed on sight if he were ever spotted in Hamburg again. Linnaeus left without stopping to get his luggage from the inn, and this case of the Hamburg Hydra is sometimes called the birth of modern biology. But around the time that one Hydra was found to be a pious fraud, another was discovered to be real. The Dutch scientist Antony van Unpronounceable discovered the existence of a microscopic freshwater predator that uses toxic barbs to stun its prey. And this creature is furthermore immortal in the sense that it can regenerate severed appendages and replace its aging cells with new ones. The ancient Greeks did not have the technology needed to observe this tiny thing, so it's not likely the inspiration for their mythical beast. But the Dutch scientist who discovered it 3,000 years later could think of only two possible names to give this monster, one being his mother-in-law. He labeled it the Hydra, and 50 years later, Carl Linnaeus, who thankfully had never gone back to Hamburg, created a whole genus classification of tiny aquatic monsters, and thus the Hydra has factual existence in modern biology textbooks. The next alphabetical entry in the biology book is the hydrangea, an Asian flower, and this is just a coincidence. It's not named after the mythical monster, although the largest specimen of the hydrangea is called the Hercules, which is how this legendary hero made it into the realm of science too. Hercules and the Hydra are real. You can find them both in the back of your biology textbook. What is the Hydra? The Hydra is the answer to a question I've never really cared to ask, and now that I've investigated the subject, I find that the topic keeps splitting. It's a reptile, a chimera. No, it's a poisonous vine. No, it's a symbol of rebellion against the patriarchy. No, it's a raging river. No, it's a real freshwater polyp. And as soon as I burn out one path of inquiry, two more present themselves. But at least now, after this study, I feel I'll be ready in case I'm ever writing something really exciting and some kid asks me, "What is the Hydra, really?" I'll tell them all of this, and then maybe they'll think twice about interrupting me again. Thank you. This is Jay Snodgrass. This is Animal Magic, and if you've enjoyed this, please check out my book, Romancing the Minotaur, Sex and Sacrifice, and Some Greek Mythology, which contains further playful exploration of, Greek mythical monsters. Thank you.